All right, more dramatic news from the Trump campaign. Trump's former campaign manager, Brad Parscale, who's still on his campaign as far as I know, and the press has reported, apparently was armed and threatening to do harm to himself in Florida. SWAT team was called in, and eventually he was talked down and subdued. The police say that he did not present a danger to them, and eventually he basically gave himself up, but he was threatening to commit suicide apparently. So is that related to the New York Times story on his taxes today? Unlikely, because it happened today, and the New York Times story came out earlier today. Now, at the same time, oftentimes papers and media organizations that do stories like this will check with sources before they go to print. So I don't know if Parscale knew anything about it, but I would be surprised. I'd be surprised if it had to do with the New York Times story. On the other hand, by the way, Harry Platt, thank you for becoming a premium member. Really, really appreciate it. You guys make this show possible. On the other hand, Parscale himself was charged, or let's put it this way, there were stories in the news about the millions of dollars he had made from the campaign, including fancy cars, Range Rovers, I think Ferraris, apartment buildings, boats, you name it. Parscale had apparently cashed in on so many fees, millions of dollars in fees from the campaign. Now, some of that is corporate donations to Donald Trump and the Republican Party. I couldn't care less about that. How Parscale spends their bribe money. Yes, if it's illegal, it's illegal, and it is what it is, and there should be consequences for it. But I don't shed a tear over it, and I don't know that I should shed a tear over regular folks giving money to Trump either. But I do, because right or wrong, misdirected or not, those folks are given $5 at a time, $50 at a time. Those are real Americans, and we don't know how much he's ripped them off personally. We don't know if there was some sort of money laundering scheme that he was headlining at Trump campaign. Now, remember, the only way that as far as we know, the New York Times story is relevant at all to this so far is that in the New York Times story, there's Claudio Brem, thank you for becoming a member. Gil M, thank you for becoming a member. You hit the join button below and you support Young Turks. You are the Young Turks. You make this coverage possible. That's why I get out here and do these live videos for you guys right away, because it's important for us to get you the news as soon as we can and to serve you guys. Back to the New York Times story. I did a long video about it. You should definitely check that out. But in regards to what Trump normally does, he oftentimes funnels money through different operations. So, for example, some of his properties had 5 times as much expenses as they did before he became president. Now, that is very unusual, but he could do one of several things there. One is he could say, hey, Secret Service stayed here. Oh, I had so many more expenses, and I'm going to charge it to the American taxpayer. We don't yet have information on if he did that. We just have information that he had new exorbitant costs at his properties. One set of people he could charge it to is the taxpayers. Another set is his campaign. So the people who donate to his campaign, then he goes, oh, my campaign staff had to stay at Doral, which is losing a tremendous amount of money, but thank God they did, because now I could charge it back to the campaign and I could write it off in my taxes. So it's a double win. So right now, we don't know why Parscale was desperate enough to threaten to commit suicide, but it is interesting that a lot of these shady practices have apparently happened under Trump, and now we have somebody who ran his campaign for a long, long time, for several years, now threatening to commit suicide. So I don't know if those things are related, or it could just be Parscale's own personal corruption, or it could be his personal demons. But there's no question that this guy, he got famous through Trump. He was a very low-level website developer. He happened to work for Trump organization because they're cheap and they barely have any money, as you can tell from the New York Times story, and they happen to hire this guy, and then he wound up in the 2016 campaign, and he took all the credit for doing the Facebook operation where they micro-targeted people. Everybody always questioned how real that was, but he certainly got the credit for it. He got famous off of it, and then he got the campaign manager job off of that. Bonnie Southern, thank you for becoming a member. I just don't want to lose any of the members here that signed up. Daniel Shomo, thank you for becoming a member. Greg Benusa, thank you for becoming a member. You guys are amazing. Rogelia, thank you so much for using YouTube Super Chat. Dame Black was already a member. Okay, I got to keep going. And so, as you can see, sunlight's running out here. So then he took that fame and took that position, became the campaign manager, and then got the Range Rovers, the Ferraris, the apartments, the boats, etc. So it would be surprising if it wasn't the chickens coming home to roost on at least those stories, if not bigger stories, about how Trump took advantage of his own campaign. Remember, also in the New York Times story, Donald Trump winds up funneling money to Ivanka Trump using a fake consultancy, it appears, and that way he avoids gift taxes that he would have to give to his kids, and he writes it down as expenses so he has to pay less taxes. If you haven't seen that story yet, Trump paid only $750 in taxes, while all of you guys are busting your ass, working so hard, and paying so much more in taxes than him. He's paying only that much, and 10 out of 15 years he paid nothing at all. Dan Van Dion, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Thank you for becoming a member. But at the end of the day, I'm glad that Parscale didn't do any damage to himself, of course. We hope he's okay. He's in the hospital now. But that should be everything that was already public, and now this should be plenty enough reason why folks should do an investigation, a more thorough investigation into how money is being spent in the Trump campaign. That's at a minimum, no question about that. All right. Thank you guys for everybody who joined. You can hit the join button below to do that. And thank you to everybody who used YouTube Super Chat. You make this show possible. Remember, Monday, all the details from the Trump tax story in the New York Times. That's the live show is always at 6 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it. We'll see you there.